Vasamuela, Vasamuela, ay sakakava vasiwe Vasamuela. Kumain, awa isamento vavasiwe Vasamuela. Vasamuela, Vasamuela, ay sakakava vasiwe Vasamuela. Kumain, mama isamento vavasiwe Vasamuela. Una manso se waile vetana malo tilo nai sukon sanalawa puea kai Vasamuela ai sakaka vavasiwe Vasamuela kumain awai samento vavasiwe Vasamuela.
Oseo.
Oseo.
Cherokee greeting. Diosem Chinia. It's the Yaqui greeting. And salud la pluma para bueno. That was Claudia singing the Yaqui deer songs that we started out with that. Claudia was taught these songs by compadre Pete in Guadalupe. He is of the household of the Alvarez family. And he is the deer singer that actually taught her the complete scope of these songs. So that's how we're starting today. Today in the village of Guadalupe, the Yaqui ceremony is called the Gloria today. And I want to go down there, way down there to that picture down there. And because I'm just starting with that to show, this is my drawing of my feelings, interpretation of the Gloria of today. So just introducing that. And then you can go up here to the head of a deer. And you see how the antlers are twined with ribbons. In the actual ceremony, the deer dancer, the maso, he's wearing a deer's head with the antlers wrapped in that manner. They drop down below that. This is a rasp. This is a wooden rasp. And it's played by three of the deer singers. The resonator is a gourd. They're sitting on the ground, resting the rasp on the gourd and rubbing it very fast. This is the breath of the deer. And then you can go all the way down here to this pan. You see a gourd in there. This would be called a water drum. So it's a gourd, and the deer singer will be beating this drum like Claudia was just doing. Boom, boom, boom. This is the heartbeat of the deer. And along with that, the dancer, who's called Maso, he's wearing a belt of deer's toes. You know, that click, 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 click. I don't have that particular item. And the actual animal, if you're near him, when he lifts his feet, his toes click. Click, 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 in that way. So now, many of these Yaqui things, we have them because at one time, the troupe of Yaquis, ceremonialists I will call them, from Tucson were invited to come and play at the Museum of Man at Balboa Park for their Indian days. And 16 of them. And it turned out that they stayed at our house when we lived adjacent, to the park. Carmelo, I remember him, he was their chief, and he had his two sons. And most notable was Molina, Francisco Molina, and he was the harpist. And the museum has a courtyard, and they set up a stage, like it was 4 or 5 feet tall, like big boards resting on a metal frame. And I was standing exactly behind it and them, And at this point, Mr. Molino had left the stage because the deer dancer was dancing on the stage. And the vibration of the dancer caused the harp that Molina was playing to vibrate and jump off of the back of the stage right into my arms. So that was very auspicious. And Mr. Molina told me that his brother had made that harp for him. So that put me in pretty good with him. I can't remember all of the other people that were here, but that's how that I have some of these Yaqui things here. And I'll start off with a piece. Viva la Guadalupana, a blaze in your smoky veil, flames who are your Indian warriors, born from your burning womb, blooming fountain of fire. El Señor, that obsidian Indian warrior, and his 1,000-arrowed men come over that one little hill. And from this one little hill of the one-horned ones, Salida del Sol, sunrise. So, in Yaqui, I'm going to call it, the title of this talk, is the Yaqui Pascua in Guadalupe. Now, the name Pascua, you can see, is pretty close to the Hebrew, of for Passover. And it's pretty universal Mediterranean, I would say, also. So that would give you a clue. There's a touchstone here with this Passover when the holy man, Moses, he's an Egyptian pharaoh who left Egypt, his court, accompanying him. He was replaced in a kind of a government reform by Seti II, and he led his court out over the Sinai. Somewhere over there he saw a cleft in the mountain, and that cleft in the mountain gave him to say he sees the promised land. So in Mayan, he looks like he is first father. So that's how that gets started. The name Hebrew, by the way, is Aramaic, and that's because where this group seemed to end up was in a place modernly called Syria, anciently Aram. And in that language, Aramaic, I would say Moses or Moises, he was the one who crosses the river. So that's kind of how that came about, and the name Hebrew has come about that way. To introduce our relatives in Guadalupe, we can go down here. I'm always fond of showing this. Comadre Maria Alvarez, she made this for me and put these photos in it, and she wrote on the back in Spanish, this is to always remember me with the strength of your memory. And here I am with Comadre. This is the front of her house. And over here, this is Claudia behind the camera, the deer singer. And this is Comadre Anita, and this is our godson, Bernal. So that's the family that we were in, and as godparents, padrinos, in that way. And all of this here that is celebrating also what's called in Mexico the Virgin of Guadalupe. So when you go way over there and you look at that painting of Guadalupe. Now for myself, when I was in Mexico City as a student, I met a Mexican woman from Oaxaca, and she said, you have to meet, the Virgin. So she took me to the place where the original painting is. The original painting was in a shrine in this huge, I call it a basilica, really huge, birds flying around and so forth. And there was a little wooden ramp, little stairway with a ramp that went right up to the foot of it. And so I could be at arm's reach, almost touching it like that. I could be that close. And it was behind glass, but probably for hundreds of years it wasn't behind glass. And there's, candles and incense and all of that. And yet it looked pretty fresh. It looked, I'm a painter, it looked like painted on a burlap. It's supposed to be a magui fiber cloak or something like that. So that's my personal introduction to the Virgin of Guadalupe. Now, behind the basilica there is a small, very steep hill. And so that's the little hill that I was referring to here in my reading. And that hill was also known, at least the way I'm told it, as the place or the hill of Tenochtitlan, maybe something like the Aztec Earth Mother. So here I have this right here, this figure, amazing, and she has the magui, the agave, on her chest, and her head, over her head is the branch of the ceiba tree, the sacred tree, and here on her skirt is the G, we call the G, that means the Milky Way or the origin of the universe. And above her, on this tule woven fan, I have put, this is the Aztec symbol for the hill. And that these two discs on each side of her face would be the O, O-L, rendered as the consciousness. So this is, a figure depicting all of this. And when I was in Guadalupe at one time, a Yaqui man, he brought me over the plaza is orientated, they call it the Glory Road at this time, east and west. And in the late afternoon, he brought me over so I would be looking directly at the Tiopo that's due west, and behind it there is a hill. You can see the hill, and that's what he was showing me. He was showing me, he said, you see that hill, that's why we are here. Since that time, that hill is no longer accessible to people in Guadalupe because they built a freeway across there. But at one time, people did make processions up there, and Comadre's house was the last house on the way of the road that would go up to that hill there. With Guadalupe, you can come over here if you can see my drawing here. The story of Guadalupe is, of course, that a native named Juan Diego, that she appeared to him, that the goddess appeared to him and wanted him to inform him. Now the Spanish are in control, the Catholic Spanish are in control, and she wanted him to tell the Catholics, of her presence at that hill. And he didn't think that they were going to give him any audience, and so she gave him a gift of roses, ostensibly from that hill, to put in his cloak, so that when he went to whoever the Catholic official was, he had those roses, and that gained him the audience to carry out her request. So that's kind of a gist of the legend. For me, this is my drawing of Juan Diego, and I have his apparition taking place in the magui, in the agave. So you can see that. And sure, he has a sword. The sword, espada, is a symbol of the holy or the sacred. It's aligned with the Hebrew word kaddish, which is also prayers or hymns. And throughout the ceremony, these swords, they're wooden swords, are very, very much in evidence. And so I have one that I made here with symbols on it. Here's the G symbols, and this is the jaguar mouth, and here's the jaguar serpent. And then over here, this is my drawing, sort of, like a chapieca. Chapiecas are the Hasidim, or the allies of the Pharisees in their march against the temple. And here he has this sword, and his ears are characteristic in his plaid blanket that he wears. So this is my drawing as an expression of that. And way up here we have the the flower, paper flower. These flowers are very much in evidence in the Ramada and over the Tiopo, the front of the Tiopo. And down here, I put this here, this is the egg, the huevos. And tonight, in the Ramada, that's a kind of corral, there's a great big one, a great big kind of paper mache, great big one. And the man is there, he's inside of that, you know, and they're going to wait for his resurrection in the morning, and they will carry this big egg in procession towards the temple, and his mother will come out to meet him and take him in. Along with all of this are the pascolas. And I have this is a pascola mask. I have this one here because this one is actually from Guadalupe. The pascola was actually using this in the ceremony in Guadalupe, and someone brought it to me. He said his brother carved that. One of the people that stayed at our house here, his name was Aceto. He also made masks like this, but that one is not his. And over here, this one I brought from Tucson. It looks like a bird, and these black crosses are the sun in that, and it makes me think that he's like a rooster who is crowing. Now the dancer for that, you see these here, these are cocoon rattles. They grow out there in the desert, and the Pascola dancer, he ingeniously wraps them around his leg, and he can do amazing rhythms with these. Comadre gave me this string of them. They've become very costly because out there in the desert where these things grow, we say they're being sprayed for insecticide, you know, that kind of things. So it's very difficult for people to acquire these anymore. And here I have a baby magui here, and it's kind of a lesson too, why it is that she appears out of the magui. Our mother magui grew huge, and it has a stalk, who knows, maybe 100 feet tall. It goes up, up, up. And not only that, but she sends out shoots, sends out tendrils with little babies on the end of them, and this is one of those babies from that great mother magui, which we eventually had to take down because it was interfering with the wires, the telephone wires here, and all of that. So all of this kind of thing is to give you an idea of our relationship in Guadalupe and who Guadalupe is, you know, and perhaps formerly she was Tenochtitlan. It seems that somebody's told me that is well, we'll call her the Aztec Earth Mother, would be sufficient. And over there to the far side here, this is actually from the Mexican market down the street here for Guadalupe. So besides the name of Pascua, for Pasch, the Hebrew, or Passover, and all of that, it's also called Florida, Florida of the resurrection, the flower of the resurrection. And this piece that I'm going to read is, you know, from the Aztec, or Nahuatl, called Song of the Fifth Sun. Now, there is what they call a Aztec calendar, is kind of a name for it, that they found, and it's on display there in the Anthropology Museum. It's huge, and intricately carving I have a small replica of it, and it portrays the fifth sun and what were the suns, before the fifth sun. And we're living in the age. We're living in the age of the fifth sun. So let me read this with this sense of the flower of the resurrection. Song of the fifth sun. I'm a singer. Let me sing. My song is mixed with red flowers, where the blossoming tree of flowers uprises. Scented flowers dance by the drums. They wander and spread, scattering fragrance. Behold our Father Sun in an emerald urn. Covered with quetzal feathers is he clad. He rains down scented flowers of all colors. Flowers come, flowers of the spring season. They shine like the sun. All these flowers are thy heart, thy body, O life's creator. Who doesn't long for your flowers? They bud, they thrive, they open. Yet, even now, flowers that once shone sun-like are seared and gone. From his lodge I have come. I sing those charming flowers to grow into thy song, giving my flowers to the bees to suck the honey from them. So lovely, their scent like toasted corn. They are everywhere. Life unfolds them only. In Sun's house have I ever gathered flowers. When the fifth sun is born, it's the need for all to come to life. Then the spiritual sun is created. Aho.